I thought it was going to be like a beauty pageant. They were calling us all up, and then we would eat cupcakes.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. This is the first time I've ever been welcomed on stage following a happy birthday sing-along, so there's records being made here every day. As was said, my name is Mark Stenberg. I'm the senior media reporter at Adweek, and it is my great pleasure to lead this conversation today with 4 luminaries in the field on the subject of new revenue plays and AI. So as I've said to, I think, everyone backstage, this is basically every other conversation I'm having right now with pretty much every media executive. So I'm really excited to jump into some of the ways that media companies are turning the threat of AI into the promise of AI. So I thought we might as well start with, we'll get to sort of the revenue generation and the new business lines in a second. I want to begin on a high level with AI products and services maybe that some of the publishers and Qualcomm have introduced maybe over the last 1.5 to 2 years that you think have been particularly well received or are particularly emblematic of the way that your organization is approaching AI. I thought, Johanna, maybe we'd start with you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mark. I think when it comes to the products and the work that we've done using AI that have responded really well with our audiences, it's almost all of it to a certain degree. We've really put our customer at the center of the conversation of the work we've been doing. And so whether that's thinking about, or whether that's using AI to enhance conversations and comments and communities within our site, whether it's using AI to create multimodal versions of our content so that we give more breadth and ultimately more diversity to our audiences, or thinking about brand new products like Ask the Post, which is our own LLM that we built on our archive, then it kind of weaves through everything in a way. But at the center of it is really our audience, and ultimately how are we using the technology to enhance their experience, create deeper engagement, and reflect a lot of the new ways that their expectations are changing. So, again, the most obvious is that now audiences and our consumers expect to be able to have a conversation with news, right? This is no longer sort of a one way, we're going to tell you what's happening. They want to ask us questions. They want to engage in that. And so Ask the Post, which is a sort of, as I said, the chatbot, the LLM, but is now integrated into articles. It's kind of wherever the user is the opportunity to have that conversation. And really, as a news organization, it's quite radical to have gone from this sort of quite didactic approach of news to a dynamic one, and to changing the relationship with our audience.
Well, and so you put a focus, I think, on the consumer or the user in that instance, which I think is really interesting and obviously intelligent. I'd be curious to sort of like flip this a little bit to, are there products, AI products, that are resonating with advertisers in a serious way? And Kristin, I know at the AP, advertising innovation has been a big focus over the last several years. Is there anything in that department that you're particularly proud of?
Sure. Well, let me step back for a second, Mark, and just explain the AP's business model, which we have an important and growing direct audience business, which we relaunched a few years ago, because the history of the AP, going back almost 200 years, is as a B2B business. The AP is the backbone of the news industry. We license our content to thousands of global news organizations across the world. And so we are embracing AI, yes, from a B2C perspective and from a B2B perspective. So from a B2C perspective, something we're doing, which is similar to a little bit of what Johanna talked about around embracing the audience experience. And so we're experimenting with something right now about what you've read on AP News, our direct-to-consumer site, and catching you up the next time you come to see us, and then also sending you personalized alerts based on what you've read on AP News. And so that we are very excited about. And then from a B2B perspective, also, we have a product that we're launching called AP Verify. With all of the misinformation in the world right now, and certainly from a UGC perspective, accuracy is most important for the AP, not only for our brand, but for all of the brands of our customers, Axel Springer and the Washington Post included in that. And so AP Verify is a tool that we use to verify UGC content, and that's really resonating with our B2B customers as well.
When this being a Stagwell event, we will return to brand safety a little bit down the line. I do think that that is a particularly interesting opportunity for unlocking new revenue there. But Gabe, I kind of wanted to throw the same question to you. Axel Springer maybe having a bit of a different approach to it, just on account of having a portfolio that contains publishers with different audiences and different goals. What are y'all doing with AI that you think is maybe not commonplace, but a thread throughout the Axel Springer portfolio?
I mean, what's fun about Axel Springer is it's a laboratory. We are a portfolio. We operate 8 core brands in 5 different markets across the world. Going to Kristin's point, I mean, we have the beauty of B2B, B2C, German, French, English, British English, and American English. And when we try to pull back and really encourage our brands to think thoughtfully about, a lot of complexity in what AI will do to our business model, we really encourage them to think about, okay, what 3 stakeholders, advertisers, readers, and journalists, and how do we make sure that we're using new technologies, whether it's AI or if you rewind 20 years ago to the World Wide Web or digital technologies, how do we make sure that it's enhancing our work, it's driving deeper engagement with our readers, whether they're subscribing or they're benefiting from our journalism for free. And for our advertisers, how do we make sure we're driving measurable impact? So the really fun thing over the past 3-ish years is that spirit or that principle has developed in different applications. I mean, our Bild, which is the largest newspaper in Europe, and it's a flagship brand for us in Germany, they built an amazing kind of chatbot discovery layer on top of their 80-ish year history and archive, so readers can discover more and deepen their engagement with their content. Politico, very different business model than a German tabloid newspaper. 60% of their revenue comes from policy professionals who need our journalism and tools to do their jobs. And so their thought process was, how do you create AI-enabled tools to make their work both faster, smarter, more efficient, and really kind of going to the workflow. Business Insider has developed a really awesome advertiser tool called Saga that applies AI technology to make sure that we're matching kind of good audience segmentation with contextual advertising and also really good content. So how do we make sure that we're driving more impact for advertisers? So I mean, I think there's a lot there, and we're at such an early stage in this, industry, or where this industry is in the AI era, that you kind of have, our approach has always been, let's experiment and iterate from there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're still very much fully in the experimentation stage, and we'll maybe get to that a little bit more with the next subject. But Claire, I wanted to throw it to you. As the non-publisher on the stage, Qualcomm is obviously very involved in the sort of AI supply chain, but you're also using AI in a variety of ways. What can you talk about when it comes to products or services that Qualcomm's experimenting with that are maybe a way of showcasing some of its AI expertise?
Yeah, so Qualcomm's a semiconductor player, so we are developing the platforms that are making your devices intelligent, whether that's your smartphone, your PC, car, smart meter, all the way to humanoids. And so for sure, we are expected to use it ourselves. And it is early. It's really early, and there's a lot of experimentation. I'm lucky that I have a CMO who's all in on the experiment. Unlike these guys up here, I have a team of communication professionals, not journalists, obviously, but they are having to produce a lot of content. So we're using a lot of tools to help us write, test, produce images. But I would suggest the tools are more sort of buddies than producing sort of the end result, because it is still important for us to still own the content. But lots of different things that we're using and tools, again, for both content creation, but also a lot of testing is done. We're building a lot of personas in our tools so that we can test the content depending on the audience that we are trying to attract.
Well, and so I want to get back to the experimentation phase a little bit here, because at Adweek, one of the main things I cover is publishers and the ways in which they make money. And for the sort of blue chip premium publishers here in this room today, when it comes to AI, a fair bit of that has been striking partnerships. These deals with OpenAI, Perplexity, et cetera. I think all the publishers on this stage belong to the rare community of 15 or so publishers that have struck those singular deals. But as we discussed a little bit, what I'm really interested in is what sort of data licensing protocol or infrastructure more broadly are you looking into outside of these singular deals? And I know these conversations are very much in utero and very much in flux, but I'd be curious, Kristin, maybe if you could start us off. I think the AP was one of the first to sign a deal with OpenAI.
The first.
Okay, thank you, Gabe. Yes, we signed our licensing deal with OpenAI about 2.5 years ago, which seems like a very long time now when you think about the evolution of what's happened in that time period in licensing content. When we licensed to OpenAI at the time, really we had a couple of principles. One was IP protection and a fair market value, and those two principles have really remained true and very important for us, and I think for the industry overall in that 2.5 years. I think things have evolved over that period, right? Now I think we're in conversations about marketplaces, so pay-per-use models where publishers can be paid, publishers and other content owners, right? Many different corporations now are their own publishers, right? And their data and content is being scraped from the web. And so there's now marketplaces and conversations around marketplaces for pay-per-usage, for training, the RAG layer, and display. I think that's a really important industry conversation. And that's creating new customers for us. And that's really important. I mean, things like the Snowflake marketplace. Snowflake has a lot of different financial customers who go there for their data and for content. AP has some content on Snowflake, and now we're able to tap into that financial customer base more than we ever have in the past, and I think that's really exciting.
Well, and maybe to put you on the spot here a little bit, but internally at the AP, is there a preferred outcome? Is there a situation that you think works best for your organization and you're trying to gently funnel the ecosystem toward it, or are you sort of saying, wait and see?
We're definitely not saying wait and see. I'd say, for 200 years or close to it, we've been a content organization. And now there are use cases for that content as data, right? Into technology companies, into finance companies, into all sorts of different customer bases as they create their own proprietary LLMs. So we are absolutely leaning into this. I would say with those principles in mind, though, that I talked about just a minute ago in terms of IP protection and a fair market value. And I am very bullish that the value of AP content 5 years from now is going to be far more significant than it is today.
Gabe, what's Axel Springer thinking about this?
I mean, similarly, I think where the thread between the post AP and us, the market, if you map out publishers, it's on kind of a matrix in terms of who's playing defense versus offense and who's passive and who's really proactive. The three of us in the organizations we represent, one, have been not only proactive but been on the offense, but I think so just in recognition that we're in a position of privilege in terms of how do we, this is such a new, this is a pioneering landscape. We have no idea what's in the black hole, but we know that we have to kind of step by step, not only work independently, but with each other on developing the right standards and the right frameworks. I think the beauty of this moment, even though it's very scary for our industry and for us all, is that for the first time, our industry, I think we're all working much closer together. We're being much more collaborative. And we're also, there's a lot of self-awareness in terms of what didn't work and like how we fucked up, in the rise of this in social and search web. And so really taking those lessons and also talking to each other, I think that's one thing that is really encouraging. And I think making sure that we are thoughtful about, even if deals are bilateral right now, making sure that we're really thoughtful about precedent. But in terms of how we approach it internally, I think we really start with principles. And in terms of, how do we make sure that there's fair market value for our content? How do we make sure that we're receiving appropriate attribution? We're having conversations around how do you define value in terms of is it use case? Is it pay per crawl? Is it pay per use? Is it pay per word or article? And I think those metrics are really important when it comes to just these new kind of content economics in the age of AI. But I think what's also like really important for us just when we go to the negotiating table is reminding ourselves we have leverage. Our market cap, like we might be smaller than the market cap of a OpenAI or fill in the blank, but LLMs need us as much as we want to make sure that we're evolving our business model. I think all of our friends, JR, John Roberts at Dotdash Meredith, like he very eloquently says, AI needs three things. It needs chips, it needs information, and it needs content. For us, so that's where, from a content perspective, like they're screwed if we're not at the table. So kind of coming in with confidence.
Can I just add from a technology perspective? I think you're totally right. I think the one thing that AI is going to do is democratize data, content, because no one can go at it alone, because your chatbot with just your data in it is going to be worthless. And so everyone is going to have to work together. The example that I can pull on, which is a little different, is we have a deal with BMW. We're building an ADAS stack with them. This is a stack that is in BMW, is on the road today, but it is being sold to the entire automotive industry. That's not something that BMW would normally do. They would not normally build something that then their competitors can use. But the fact of the matter is the more cars on the road with that technology in it means that it gets better. And I think it's going to be exactly the same. And sorry to use an auto example in this crowd, but that's all I can do.
I know. I mean, we agree, and we're already seeing a demand and conversations around making sure that the sources and the data that's part of our LLM are trusted, and that the knowledge graph is coming from, again, really original sources. And so we're working with partners who have a lot of their own content as well, and ingesting that into our LLM to create sort of a custom version of it. And I actually think I'm fully in agreement with you, Kristin, that our content only becomes more valuable and more important. It does give us a different negotiating position to one we've had in the past. And I think that we'll be looking for other partners to keep creating these sort of closed environments of trusted content.
Yeah, I was having a conversation about this during advertising week last week, and I was saying, well, one of the concerns early on with publishers working together too much was there's a world in which it gets construed as collusion, and then you wade into antitrust concerns, and this guy told me for publishers, collusion would be aspirational.
Yeah, totally. You've seen what's happened to our industry so far, right?
Yeah.
But what I was going to say, like the AI, new technology, even just content license, like this, we know this will eventually be regulated. And I think where we talk a lot and we think a lot about the supply and demand side in terms of what's in it for us as publishers and what's in it for them as LLMs, but what's most important is what's in it for consumers. So if LLMs need three things, the chips, information, content, then what does the end user need to have real utility from this technology? They need relevancy, they need recency, they need verification, they need quality, they need grounded truth. And that's where there's a real distinction between synthetic content and unique new, unique content that we all spend billions of dollars in investing throughout our publications.
I do want to, given that there's revenue right in the name of this title, though, I do want to press this point a little bit more. We're talking as if there's an infinite timeline for these decisions to get made, where I talk with publishers every day, traffic is disappearing. There's been layoffs at least 4 major publishers in the last week. So it's not as if there is no timeline here. I wanted to ask, are any of these efforts, as nascent as they are, actually bringing in any revenue into the business in a serious way? Again, I had a conversation last week, asked somebody this question, he said, oh yeah, hundreds of dollars. Is there anything I can say in terms of, is this affecting the bottom line yet in any material way?
I mean, for the AP, yes, it's significant. We are a licensing business at our heart, right? So I think we didn't have the ramp-up period that other publishers who are predominantly advertising and subscription-based may have had, because we had a framework to work within already. So for us, it has been a significant revenue driver, yes.
I mean, again, through the partnerships side of it, that has been a significant growth area for us this year. And then the sort of partnership I was referencing earlier is with Indeed, actually, and where this is a new revenue stream for us. So custom LLMs, thinking about how our content can enhance their customer experiences, building out new editorial sections. Our partner over there, Common Graph, talks about moving away from sort of partnerships and sponsorships to co-creation. And so again, I think that is a new revenue line that we've seen this year.
Mark, I was just going to add, though, I think you're right in that there is an absolute sense of urgency we all have in figuring this out for a long-term sustainability of the news industry, right? I mean, absolutely, news publishers across the globe are losing significant amounts of traffic and having to find alternative revenue streams. So I think we are not disillusioned that this is now. We have to figure this out now, and I think that's why there's a sense of urgency around it.
Yeah, the way that we're thinking about, our web pages and the fact that the traffic to them is slowing down. If not, I don't think it's as dramatically declining, perhaps, as people think, but there is a very noticeable trend. Are we building those web pages, those article pages for humans or for agents in the future? And what difference does that actually make to the product if we are building them for agent first?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been sitting here all day listening to everyone, and lots of discussion about the web page. And I'm like, the web page? What about the app? And then are they thinking about the future where there's probably not even going to be an app, let's be honest. There's just going to be an agent. And yeah, you're still going to have your smartphone. You're still going to have your PC. You're also going to have glasses. So are you guys thinking about that device, right? And how people are going to interact with the news through the glass as well?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, we have to reimagine the way that our content is being consumed across all devices and hardware. And the challenge, I think, is for one of the challenges for the news industry, although I really do see as much opportunity as I do challenge, is the fact that so much of our business is still based in a display economy, and that's the part of the business that's under threat. So yes, apps are absolutely part of the future. Our CTO, Vineet, talks about apps and chats as the future, right? So I think that the opportunities there, it's just not where we're making the most of our ad revenue currently. So we have to reorient our products. We have to think about new surfaces. And ultimately, we have to build different models, different economies.
And I would we always take a yes and approach in terms of, just from a revenue perspective. Do the licensing deals, do they move the needle? They go straight to CAT. Those are amazing EBIT opportunities because that is monetizing our current archives or our current, what we publish. But I think when, going to Claire's great question, as publishers, we need to be less dependent on either one or two revenue streams, but also one or two platforms. And I think what we've tried to do and what we've tried to encourage our brands and kind of the conversation that we're having around the table is, how do you focus on two things? One, distribution, and how do you make sure that whatever technology, our content, we're making sure that we're monetized wherever our journalism is, and how do we continue, if not win more of our direct relationship with our end users. Those could, who knows? That could be in glasses, that could be in agentic workflows, that could be in, Politico still has a great newspaper that Chuck Schumer loves to bring to the Capitol Hill gym. So it has to be it all. It has to be yes and.
Well, that's a great way to wrap things up. I feel like we could talk about this for a lot longer, but that's all the time we have. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Mark.